What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to another Pay-Per-Viewpoint edition of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast, where we're going to be talking about AEW's All Out 2021 pay-per-view, which just ended a few minutes ago. It's the big show with, well, the big show was on it, but also CM Punk. We had a couple other surprises in the mix, too. We got some great matches. We got some negative things, not anything super bad to be, crapping on too much, at least not from my perspective, but we got a variety of opinions, and we're going to be telling you what we thought. We want to know what you have to think as well, so drop your comments below, or if you are in the live chat right now, which thank you massively to Huerta in the live chat, $50 donation for the super chat. Here's to the celebration of professional wrestling and helping any little amount I can for your wedding. Congrats, Tony. Thank you incredibly much. Thank you to everybody who's going to be in the mix on this. Thank you to all those who can't join live but are able to listen after the fact. Whatever it might be, thank you for being here. I am your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me for this is Callum Wiggins.
Tony, I'm happy to be here on, I think I can honestly say, is an all-time great pay-per-view.
It was all out, not all time. So... I had to. It's terrible, but I had to.
I'm now regretting my decision to come onto this show.
And everybody's regretting their decision to tune in and listen to it, but I had to. Come on.
And you're refunding that $50 now?
That's not refundable. There's a contingency of it comes with these terrible jokes that I have to make. William in the chat says Big Show was the best thing on this card. Payton says some negative things equals QT Marshall. Yeah, so generally speaking, you're feeling super big thumbs up, happy fun time, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like most of the matches delivered to a high level, and more than anything else, it was just a case of this company got a lot bigger and a lot more. Like they've already got CM Punk, and now they've just added even more depth and value to that roster. It's just not just a case of bringing on people from the independent circuit; it's bringing in really established names, and yeah. It's all looking really good at the moment for this company.
I mean, the biggest takeaways we're going to get to, we'll just say it, and in case anybody is tuning in wanting to know what happens, the absolute biggest takeaways probably for most people are going to be the last two things that happened for the night, which was the Adam Cole surprise and the Bryan Danielson surprise. There are other things we're going to talk about. There's another surprise that happened in the Casino Battle Royale. There's some good matches and everything. Marquise in the chat, another super chat. Magic, that was magic. Thank you for the super chat for that. Michael Patrick says, what a damn good show. Is there anything you want to start with before we just start getting into the matches themselves? Is there any kind of preamble or anything?
I mean, I wouldn't say there's anything in particular beyond the fact that this, essentially AEW is really starting to, as we've said before, is generating a significant amount of steam. It's pried Adam Cole away from WWE. It's Bryan Danielson is now no longer part of the WWE family. He's now firmly here, even though we kind of all knew this was going to be the case for a couple of months now. Adam Cole is completely fresh, and it's just a case of I guess WWE couldn't promise him what he wanted. So, but this is all super cool that this promotion is getting all these people. It seems like it's so much more vibrant and fun environment to be in right now. Yeah, as I was saying, I thought this was an absolutely great show, and it kind of sets, I think it sets a new not a precedent, but it sets a new, I guess, era for the promotion as well with these people coming in.
This is a game-changing pay-per-view for sure. This is one people are going to look back on and they're going to say, this is where X, Y, and Z started. And, we're going to see this on countless video package things going in the future. It's, even if some individual elements weren't fantastic, this is a memorable pay-per-view to say the least. Grimshot, another super chat. Thank you for the super chat. Says, you could give me 9 Punjabi prison matches and 1 Lucha Bros Young Bucks match, and I would still give this a 5-star pay-per-view. What a match. We're definitely going to talk about that one. That was fantastic. Marquise also says, this was what pro wrestling is all about. Can't deny that. That's for sure. So, again, tell us your thoughts, whether it's in the live chat or if it is in the chat comment section below if you're not listening live. And while you're over in whatever fashion it is on YouTube or whatever, hit the like button, to share, the subscribe, all that good stuff. The thanks button if you want to toss a little bit of the spare change our way in that fashion. If you feel so inclined, join the members only platform. Check out our most recent Darkcast, for instance. Rob and I watched the Wrestle Grand Slam Night 2, which, it's not something that I normally do. So if you want to check that out, that's over there as a Darkcast. Patreon.com/SmarkOutMoment, and the TeePublic and Redbubble shops are also two things that you could do where if you want to pick up some merchandise or something, that helps the channel grow as well. Wanted to get those plugs out of the way before we start diving into this. And the buy-in was the 10-man tag team match. Best Friends and Jurassic Express defeated the HFO by submission. Just a standard match, whets your appetite. Nothing really too much going on here, but nothing to complain about either. It was just a fun, generic match, in my mind.
Yeah, it was, I kind of compare it to kind of a PWG 10-man tag match, which essentially everyone can get in the ring at any point in time. The rules don't matter. Just have fun, have some cool little spots, like the chain of submission things they were doing in there with Luchasaurus, then taking them all down. The babyface team, everyone was really over, apart from Wheeler Yuta, but he's still establishing himself at this point. Luchasaurus was pretty much dominant in every point that he was in the match. He was presented as the monster that he is, and it just goes along. Even though it got a bit sloppy and disjointed in places, it was just a fun, nothing serious, no stakes. 10-man tag where the babyfaces win, because of course the babyfaces win, because why would you have the heels win?
Yeah, for the go-in type of thing. Yeah, you're not going to do that.
I will say the one thing that I take away that's maybe a slight negative on this match is that I think that Jack Evans at this point, the only thing that he really is good for is getting beaten up by people.
Yeah, he was kind of the weak link out of the bunch. No, not kind of, he was.
Because I remember watching him in Lucha Underground and thought that he wasn't going to be a mega star or anything like that, but he was very athletic and flexible and could do a lot of cool stuff in the ring, and now he just looks like he's off the pace a bit now. And when you do some of the moves that he does and still try and do some of the more flexible and acrobatic stuff, but you're doing it at a slower pace, then it makes it stand out a little bit more. So I'm kind of happy with him not getting much of any offense in these matches anymore, and that's why I was kind of happy about the fact that, hey, Butcher's back.
Yeah, at the end of the match, the Butcher and the Blade and the rest of the HFO start beating down on Orange Cassidy, and then some of the baby faces come out, even though the company is not supposed to have baby faces and heels. You know how it works. With some Dark Order members, there was Dante Martin, Varsity Blondes, just to come out to...
Yeah, Ten and John Silver, as well.
Yeah, just to reiterate, hey, there are still people that can join in, and we could get some 20-man tag team thing at some point. It's just a means to get some people on the card, I think, more than anything else. They don't wrestle for the pay-per-view. Varsity Blondes didn't have a match, but, they got to do something. Nothing bad about that.
Well, I think the most important takeaway from the post-match attack was that they threatened to cut... not as much Butcher, it's more the fact they threatened to cut Orange Cassidy's hair.
So you think we're getting a hair versus hair match down the line?
I don't know who it... I assume it would be Cassidy against Matt Hardy.
Yeah, that's the biggest match out of the bunch.
But we've already seen that match as well. That was on a recent Dynamite, so that's why I'm thinking that it might not necessarily be that one, but I assume there must be something that's been involved with... there will be some sort of hair stipulation match down the road. And I'd be totally fine. It would be quite cool that if Hardy would lose his hair at this point. Because he does seem to be growing it. I think he's growing it out intentionally at the moment so he can get it cut afterwards.
Unless they do something where we've seen some other promotions do this in the past where it's a hair versus hair match and they just cut the hair, they don't shave them bald, because then it's just why'd you even bother, oh no, now he's got a different haircut that looks perfectly fine. Nah, butcher it, do what they do in the Jackass movie where they have the razor and they just kind of shave parts of it, so you need to shave the whole thing off. Go full blown on it. Grimshot thinks Cassidy would lose a hair versus hair match. More merch would move with new designs. Bald orange Cassidy looks. Yeah.
I think it's a very rare situation where you have a babyface lose a hair versus hair match.
Yeah, you know what? I can't think of the last time that would have happened.
It would have been, well, there are two instances that spring to mind, none of which would particularly, I think, went down particularly well. Eugene against Eric Bischoff, where Eugene got his head shaved after that, and sort of like, okay.
And obviously the reason why they did that because they thought that would be like,
hilarious, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other one is Roxy Laveau in TNA, where they had that.
Oh yeah,
that really bizarre women's ladder battle royal thing, where it's the weirdest match that I can't really be bothered to go into the description, but essentially it ended up with beautiful people costing Roxy the match, and so it meant that because she didn't win the match and win a title shot, it meant that she had to have her head shaved instead.
That's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Roxy Laveau. Wow. That had to be 10 years ago at this point, right?
Oh, longer than that.
Oof.
That was probably about 2007. Because that was right at the start of the women's the knockouts division, like actually having a title in Impact.
So if we see a hair versus hair match down the line, you've heard it here first from Callum. Or, well, they probably talked about it backstage, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
After that, we had Dan Lambert cut a promo just to, I guess, basically put everybody on notice and just to remind people. We had a couple people that weren't on the card that showed up just to be like, remember, these are other people too. And I didn't think that was bad. It's a little buffer segments. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, just kind of promo, just remind people that Men of the Year are there and they're aligned with American Top Team now. Get a few UFC fighters on the show as well. They did tease that they might just come out and attack someone later in the show. That obviously didn't end up being the case, but
yeah,
but there is something there at the very least. At least they're doing something.
Lambert's cutting some great promos. This wasn't as good as some of the other ones that he's had, but he's one of the most entertaining things that I've been seeing lately. Anytime he gets a mic, for the most part, I'm like, all right, I'm going to listen to this guy. This is good. I forgot to mention, there was a sign that I really liked that Orange Cassidy had brought out, which was Orange Cassidy is okay, period. And it was written in like the most bland, it was just a white poster board with black text, no odd font to it, nothing. It was like the most bland sign, which is perfect for that. So whoever made that sign, kudos to you. There was another great sign in the next match that I noticed from the very start, the TNT Championship match. It was the first thing that I noticed. The first thing that I wrote down was that there was a sign that said, "My mom hates that I am here." Which I want to know the story behind that.
That person's mom has terrible taste.
That's true. And Miro successfully retains the title over Eddie Kingston with more of a competitive match than I thought that it would be, to be honest. I thought this would end a little bit sooner, and I did not expect that an exposed turnbuckle will be a major part of it. I thought that this was going to be straightforward. Miro just wins. We got a little bit of shenanigans.
Well, I think some people that may have gone into this thinking that this match was going to be pretty short are underestimating how much they value Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston's not there as a jobber, it's just like a one and done thing with Miro. He is a top star in the company. I mean, he's wrestled twice for the World Championship. He has to be positioned in a certain way to be, okay, this has to be the toughest test that Miro's faced. I would say that the first note I wrote down for this thing was that wonderful Redeem These Nuts shirt, which I assume will sell a big deal. The crowd was really behind Eddie for the entire match. Eddie was like getting fired up with Miro shots whenever Miro started to like hit a few like strikes towards him or back off a little bit. Eddie was getting right back into his face. Miro hit a wonderful drop kick in this match, which he got so far off the ground. Just like thinking like, okay, this guy's in the best shape of his life right now. So I'm glad he's able to pull stuff like that off. Eddie managed to get to the ropes after the game over, so the crowd like popped big for that as well. And it ends with a essentially referee getting involved, preventing Eddie from doing certain things, sending him into the turnbuckle. Miro does a mule kick, then running super kick. He pins Kingston. So
you avoid having him tap out.
Yeah. Well, my perspective on this is that I believe that because it was a shady finish, that we're going to get a rematch in New York, Arthur Ashe Stadium.
I can see that.
And Kingston's going to win the TNT Championship.
Oh, you think it's actually going to pull out the win at the end of that?
Well, one or two things going to happen. He's going to win the championship. Well, that's where we're going to get the tap out. So I feel like they did two smart things here, which is have Eddie have a reason to believe that he was screwed over because he obviously Miro cheated to win. And so that means that if he wins it back in the second attempt, it gives reason for the rematch and a reason for Kingston to win it back. And if it's in New York, he'll get a monster reaction. And so, and AEW is pretty good at having people in their hometown win. So that's part of the reason why I think it. But otherwise, they haven't had Eddie tap out here or pass out to the game over. And so if they wanted to do that and put a lot more heat onto Miro, then they could do that instead.
I'm down for seeing a rematch, and especially with that environment and everything. I think that's a good idea.
I like the fact they used the DDT as well.
Yeah, I really like that they've been doing this with the whole like DDT as his kryptonite, because it's such a simple move and everybody can do it. So any match, whether it's Fuego or if he ends up fighting Moxley or whatever, you could hit a DDT and it could be like, okay, crap, that's the thing that hurts him, so this person might actually win. And I'm hoping that whoever beats him for the title wins with a DDT. Just to kind of round that out, Yeah,
but it would be a good thing. I don't know who. Nobody really uses the DDT for their finisher except for the only two people that I know from the roster are technically like Moxley has some variant of it, more of a brainbuster type thing, but Andrade as well. But he's a heel, so I don't know. I don't imagine he'd be the one beating Miro for the title.
Yeah, maybe it is just one of those things where somebody wins even though that's not their finisher. Because people win without their finishers once in a while, too.
Oh, yeah. Either that
suggest Jake Roberts.
Isn't that... I don't know whether Jake Roberts is, good or is, happy or not happy about this, because, Miro is essentially getting the DDT over as a lethal move again. So, just like anybody's finisher or anything like that, it's like saying, oh, my God, this move is likely going to cost me my title at some point.
I'd assume he'd be 100% down for that.
Oh yeah, I assume so. I just don't know whether he'd be so down with the idea that everyone's going to start using a DDT in every match that they have against Miro.
Yeah,
it's like the opposite. It's like the opposite. Like he was the only guy to ever use a DDT for a while. Now it's like Miro's the only guy that gets a DDT used on him in every match.
Better to do that though than to be the way it's been for the past couple of decades, where everybody does the DDT and it's not even a one count.
Yep, true.
So. If Kingston gets a title match down the line, New York is most likely the place where that's going to happen. And with this whole low blow situation and all, then it's a good enough setup for that. Thumbs up in my book. We went over to Jon Moxley versus Satoshi Kojima. And not a match that I have much to talk about. There's a couple matches that I really don't have anything to say. It's just that I had never seen a Kojima match before. I didn't know what I was getting into. And I thought that it was fine. Moxley wins. He got his head bitten. A lot of people were biting on this episode. Did you notice that?
It's a pretty standard heel tactic. It's very old school.
There's at least 3 matches where somebody was biting somebody in it. So that and the Canadian Destroyer were the 2 things that every other match had it. It seemed. But the match itself, what do you think? Kojima and Moxley.
Yeah, very good. Very, very good. It was the strong style match that I expected. I thought Kojima was actually more agile and was moving pretty well, considering his age and obviously the fact that he travelled over. So I was actually pleasantly surprised with how active he was in this match. And yes, there was it was a professional wrestling match. It wasn't super high octane. It wasn't spot after spot after spot. It was just 2 guys beating the shit out of each other and throwing suplexes and big moves on each other. Hit a few German suplexes. Moxley was consistently avoiding the clothesline, which was what was Kojima's moving his arsenal. So he actually he never hit the right armed clothesline at any point, or not for any sort of pin attempt anyway. And then Moxley avoided that, hit a couple of paradigm shifts, and wins. So the result is everything that we expected it to be. But I thought the match was really good between these two. It actually made me upset about the fact that Kojima's not going to be in the G1 this year.
So Is Kojima somebody that you've seen quite a bit of matches of beforehand?
Yeah, but it's mainly tag matches because he is a legend at this point. He's been a legend probably ever since I started watching New Japan more regularly. So he doesn't have many one-on-one matches, at least not from, at this point in his career. He has them on occasion. He's actually had probably more this year than he's had at any other point in his year, but that's in the last 5 years or so. But that's mainly due to the fact that New Japan's been hit by COVID so badly and has had such an issue with injuries over the past year or so that he's had to be called into action to have more singles matches where other guys have been unavailable to wrestle.
Based off of the previous matches you've seen, is this kind of on par or better than, or worse potentially than what he's wrestled in New Japan? If anybody, for instance, in my case, having never seen him before, if somebody's like, oh, I want to check out more of his, is it something where this might have been one of his standout matches, do you think? Or is this one of those yeah, it's a regular match, go check out the rest of his stuff, it's really good, that kind of deal?
It's different. I think that the actual quality of the match was better than what I've seen of Kojima in more recent matches. The other issue is the fact that a lot of Kojima's spots or classic spots that he does in matches rely on the audience knowing what he does and who he is and why he does that stuff. So because he's such a legendary figure in Japan, people know when he does. He does a bit where he reins in chops in the corner,
Yeah,
and then he does that
tonight.
scream. Yeah, does that scream at the end of it, and the scream is meant to get a response from the audience. And obviously, in an American crowd, you don't get as much response because not many people even know what he's saying or know the spot is even there. It's like when Maki Ito came over for a little while, she does a spot where she beats people in the head or she stands over the person in the corner and says, in Japanese, who is the cutest wrestler in the world? And the crowd is supposed to respond, Ito-chan. But obviously, in America, they don't know that you have to respond to Ito-chan as well. Or at least not, I assume people that have seen her more regularly know to respond to that. But people that are watching her for the first time have no idea what you're supposed to say with that thing. So she just has to say it. And then hopefully, over time, it would, start to catch on. But, yeah. I'd say that the crowd response is better in Japan, but the actual match itself, I think, was a higher quality than what I've seen in the recent years from Kojima.
So after that, another surprise happens where Moxley is surprised to see Minoru Suzuki popping out.
Yes.
Now, I also don't know Suzuki, but
you will.
I assume that's a big deal. Because the reaction, of course, was pretty damn great from the crowd.
Minoru Suzuki is very well known in America, and he's very well known in Japan as well, because he is. I think he might even be older than Kojima. He's certainly in that age range as well, with about in the 50s. But he's a killing machine, essentially. That's his role in New Japan. He's the head of Suzuki-gun, the faction there, and he's known for being a guy who delivers a significant amount of punishment, especially with his forearms, and then takes a lot of punishment and actually invites people to beat him up as much as they possibly can, and then he'll just hit them back even harder. He likes being in pain, and he likes delivering pain. That's essentially what his gimmick is. I'd say he's is if Mick Foley was Japanese and an actually athletic wrestler.
So he's a perfect person to fight Moxley and have them beat the living shit out of each other.
Oh yeah, this match is gonna this upcoming match that they're gonna have on Dynamite is the match that you should be looking forward to the most if you know anything about them. But even if you don't know anything about Suzuki, you've never seen him before, then you're gonna know what he's all about at this point. Again, I haven't seen him wrestle in a little bit because I don't really follow New Japan as closely as I have done, but if he's anything like he was last time that I saw him, I've seen him live. That's how great he is. Saw him in the UK when New Japan came over. He was in the main event against Okada for the World Championship, and that match fucking slapped. It's the best match I've ever seen live.
Huh.
And yeah, I'm super excited to see what they do to each other. And obviously they had Suzuki hit the Gotch pile driver and so to stand toward the end of it. So I only assume that Moxley's going to beat him in Cincinnati. But as a one-off thing, to have him show up and be part of this thing, I think he's going to leave one hell of an impression.
Something to look forward to, that's for sure. Ted in the chat says Suzuki is 53. So,
yeah,
I mean,
old.
if he looked pretty good. So, I'm excited to see that.
He doesn't wrestle as much as he used to, obviously. So he keeps in good shape. So he's not one of these 50-something-year-olds who's really, really slowed up at this point. I mean, and to be fair, with the style that he wrestles, he doesn't need to slow up too much because it's essentially just let's stand in the middle of the ring and beat the shit out of each other for a while.
A much different thing than doing a bunch of aerial maneuvers and everything, right?
Well, he does have one of the best drop kicks I've ever seen. So if he pulls that out, then that might be good as well.
So following that was the AEW Women's World Championship match. Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, retaining over Chris Statlander. A couple of spots looked a little rough here, but other than, a couple things here and there, nothing that really stood out. It's like, oh, this was a super terrible botch that I needed to write down or whatever. Just, that was one note of just like, yeah, okay, there's some moments. But I liked some moments too, just the same. I liked Orange Cassidy getting real fired up and getting Statlander back into the ring for the, almost getting counted out. Crowd went nuts for the Panama Sunrise. That's for sure. And ultimately, Baker manages to get Statlander to tap out to the lockjaw. Went about it as well as I expected that it would. Same sort of result that we were expecting too.
I thought this was great. I thought they had a really, really good match. There's not again. There were a few slight botches and stuff like that, but nothing that I thought were anything super significant. But things like the swinging fisherman's neck breaker off the top turnbuckle, fisherman buster and stuff like that. I really thought Baker did some beautiful movement into a backslide attempt, and then hit a DDT, which was sold very well. There was that one moment the dangerous moment where it seemed like she was going to go for a delayed superplex.
Yeah, that was the moment that I think that I had written down. Okay, there's been a couple spots here.
Yeah, but I thought that it made it almost even better, the fact that she managed to recover it and then hit the superplex anyway. It just, again, it makes it feel a bit real because you're supposed to be mirroring an actual fight, and fights do get stoppy occasionally. So, I thought the ending sequence was pretty good because Statlander misses this pendulum moonsault, hits the floor hard. Baker then hits stomp off of the steps. Cassidy gets really animated, which you obviously never see Cassidy do.
Right.
So I guess they're building up this romance storyline between him and Statlander,
which has been in the works for almost 2 years at this point, practically.
Yeah. So I'm totally cool with that being that's the thing that gets him animated. So yeah, that works for me. I think the crowd responded to it well as well, so I think they know that that's kind of the way they're going with it.
Yeah.
And then after it looked for a little while Statlander could get back on top, I really like the finish because it was Baker was just constantly hitting her with stuff to get the pin. So it's just hit the Panama Sunrise, gets a 2 count, hits another stomp, gets another 2 count, put on the lockjaw, force her to. I don't know if she tapped or passed out. Either way, it was just a case of it was grinding them down. It's just, okay, this didn't work, try this. This didn't work, try this, and then until you eventually get the win. So yeah, I thought this was a really good title match. I think it's one of the best women's title matches I've seen.
And of course, Statlander comes out of it losing, but looking good, as she should have. So we know down the line, if all things work out well, she's winning that title. Not from Baker, but she's going to be a champion at some point. And this is another match that proves why she is a good choice for that. So
I wouldn't be certain about the fact that she's going to win the title at some point.
You don't think so?
Well, it's just a case Baker's going to hold this title for a while. I assume if it is Thunder Rosa that ends up beating her for it, obviously we talk about who the most immediate challenger for the title is going to be. But I imagine if Thunder Rosa wins it, she holds it for a while. They give their champions long reigns. And if you give champions long reigns, it's less likely that other people are going to win it at some point.
I just assume that Statler's going to be in there for a couple of years and she'll get her shot.
Yeah, but I'm also imagining that they'll sign other women at that point as well. People will fit like they signed one tonight. So I don't like to put any sort of certainty on it. Do I think that she could, and almost that she could be a women's title champion in the future? Absolutely, but I don't like to put any sort of stamp of certainty on it.
So Michael Patrick in the chat brings up something. He says that Baker should join the Elite. You think that they should take that direction with her character or keep her separate?
Keep it separate. She's super over as she is. Don't try and conflate it with this Elite storyline just because she is dating Adam Cole. She's gone over on her own merits. I don't think there's any need to conflate it with the two of them. They don't need to have a women's team. I think that she's developing a faction on her own. So
I'd like to see a 50-50 scenario where like they acknowledge it and she's kind of like an ally in a different circle, kind of. Like, not that every time that the Elite comes out, she's there too, but she's doing her own thing. Cole and the rest of them are doing their own thing. And then maybe just once in a while, they do some kind of a little thing where it's just like, oh, you know, backstage, they transition from one promo to another and they kind of acknowledge it. You know, if they ever run into a problem where it's like Orange Cassidy and them with Statlander are in the way of the Elite, well, you know, Baker can back them up for balancing out the women kind of a thing. I'd like to see that. So it's kind of like having your cake and eating it too. Peyton thinks that the title is going to be hot potatoed sooner or later. Could happen too. You never know. I mean, the first champion popping over from Riho, and then Nyla Rose, and then Shida holds it for a long time. So
yeah, I was just saying they've not historically done that with championships. So I don't know if there's any real inclination that they would do that. I think it's more likely that they might get women's tag titles at some point. And that could be something that other women can hold if they're not going to be positioned to win the main title straight away.
Would you rather see women's tag titles or a trios tag title get introduced first?
I think they're more set up for the trios title right now. So I would say that's the one they should go with first.
I would predict that more. I don't know if I'd personally choose that over the women's tag titles. I don't know. You don't want to overload too many titles too. That's the other thing. You start getting into having 15 championships on the brand, and then suddenly everybody's a champion, and then some of the championships don't work as well. But then again, AEW hasn't established any kind of problem with that like WWE has, so give them a little bit of a benefit of the doubt too, you know?
Well, I don't think it's problematic if it's a title that has a separate purpose to it. So they've got a men's world title, they've got a women's world title, they've got men's tag team championships, and they've got a secondary championship. I know they've got like the FTW thing, but no one really, that's not recognized as an actual official title.
That needs to go away.
So if you have something that they've got plenty of trios, so they could easily put in a trios title, and they've got a lot of women, they haven't actually gone to the point of establishing real tag teams yet beyond obviously Anna Jay and Tai Conchi, and they've got something in the works right now between the Bunny and Penelope Ford.
Right. And they could maybe do something with Nyla Rose and Jade Cargill if they do that whole like we're fighting against each other, but we also are cut from the same cloth kind of deal, you know?
Yeah, and also on Dark they've established that there's a kind of a trio tag team between Killing King, Red Velvet, and Big Swole.
Yeah, that's true.
So there is there is room for that. So they have the groundwork there. I just don't think they're quite ready yet. And then it's just a case once they have those two titles, I think you're done at that point. You don't need any further championships. They just serve different purposes to the ones you currently have. I'm totally fine. That's the issue that I have with WWE's title, is not the fact that like they have loads of them. It's the case that like what's really different between the United States title and the world title, or what's really distinguishes the 24/7 title from the United States title. It's obviously it's a case of like, oh, this one does get defended all the time. One gets defended all the time, but what's the actual value of holding that over the other title?
Yeah, and you don't want to overload anything, but at the same time, if your roster keeps expanding like AEW does, then you find a way. They'll find a way. That'll happen sooner or later.
Yeah.
Following this, Andrade had a little bit of an interview just to basically remind everybody that, this thing with Pac's not over with because it didn't happen tonight. It's going to happen on, was it Dynamite or is it Rampage?
It's going to be Rampage, this Friday's Rampage.
Okay, I thought it might have been Rampage, but I wasn't too sure. So stay tuned for that, of course. And then that switched us over into what the Lucha Bros were actually going to be doing. The Steel Cage match for the AEW World Tag Team Championship against the Young Bucks, which was fantastic.
Yep. Yeah, I'd say easily match of the night.
Easily.
As soon as they came out and had that cool, they had the obviously musical performance entrance, and they had this incredibly cool attire and like this pyro show and everything like that. I just thought, yep, they're winning the tag titles tonight.
I still thought that they weren't, to be honest. I was still just like, okay, they're getting a cool entrance, but it's going to end up being Young Bucks.
And then Nick Jackson came out with his beard dyed. And that's just like, they're so good at being douches.
They really are.
They're so good at making everything about them so unbelievably hateable.
Yeah, this is better, I think, for the Young Bucks than just being, hey, those are the indie guys that do a lot of super kicks and aren't they fun?
It's kind of impossible this type of match to kind of list spot after spot, but the thing that you kind of need to know is that they did an excellent job of working the crowd into thinking the Bucks were going to win pretty comprehensively. They brought in a loaded boot.
Oh, the boot or the sneaker with the thumbtacks. That's something new. And, I thought that was going to be the end. I figured, we'll get like one kick from that and that'll be the end of it or something. And it ended up being like a good 10 minutes after that or so. Yeah,
well they kicked him down, then they hit the BT trigger on Pentagon, and then you just like the crowd when Phoenix broke up that pin at the very last second, the crowd went. I've never heard the crowd go so crazy for a near fall.
Ted in the chat just said the same thing. When Ray Phoenix broke up that pin, I knew Bros were going to finally win the tag titles.
Because the crowd went insane for that moment because they just thought
that's got to be it.
Oh my, yeah, because it just felt because they felt that oh my god, the Bucks have beaten them so comprehensively here at this point, and then it seemed like it was really at the last second that Phoenix even moved to break up the pin to the point where I thought he was going to miss it.
Me too.
And so when he did break up, the crowd just went crazy and they thought, oh my god, there's still a chance. And yeah, they did the cool spots of like making them bleed, ripping the mask apart, all the like heel shenanigans. One of my favorite parts of the match is actually something that happened outside of the match itself, which is when Tony Schiavone kept calling Don Callis a piece of shit on commentary. Like legitimately just saying, "You fucking piece of shit." And that's
I like so much of this match. Like even just like the way that Phoenix bounced off the ropes and then bounced off the cage. Like that was cool. I liked the low blow in front of the referee where Jackson's just like, haha, like it's fucking legal, that kind of deal. Good stuff whenever you see like the more bang for your buck. And Penta's Canadian Destroyer.
Yeah, it's very cool when you can do it right from the top rope.
The splash from the top of the cage from Phoenix.
Yep, that was super cool moment as well. You just get the really excellent aerial shot of him just coming down. He seemed to be falling for seconds. It felt like. Obviously, it was just a matter of seconds, but like I assume it was like only a couple of seconds that he was in the air and then down and towards him. But it just felt like he was hanging there for a while.
I always liked I also liked the series of super kicks, like the Mexican standoff kind of deal, where it's just one after another, going in like a circle. Thought that was great.
Yeah, it was a really like emotionally fueled match. The crowd was super behind the Lucha Bros. They were desperate for them to win. So once they did hit the assisted pile driver, got the pin, crowd popped huge for it.
I was shocked. I didn't see it coming. I really thought that the Young Bucks were going to retain here. And I don't know who would have necessarily beat them down the line, but I had Santana and Ortiz as my next champions. You go with the Lucha Bros. People aren't going to be upset about it. It's not a bad decision to make whatsoever. And obviously the match was fantastic. So I don't know where they go from here. And I had written up something on the Bleacher Report article of like, well, they've kind of done everything, but I don't think people are going to necessarily complain if we get another rematch. That's for sure.
No, I think there's a real possibility Young Bucks win the titles back in the next couple of weeks or months. And then we move on to the Santana Ortiz thing, because I don't see anyone on the heel side that's super primed yet. But then again, the thing about the Lucha Bros is they have like very often transition between face and heel in AEW. They're kind of like the consistent tweeners the Death Triangle is. So I don't think it's out of the question that they lose the titles to like Santana Ortiz or FTR or
what's another like heel team other than, because I was thinking FTR too, and then I was like, well, I don't know. I mean, FTR already had the tag titles, so maybe they don't just go back to that. But
I'd say, well, FTR is probably like the standout one on the heel side. Then the Bucks, obviously, of course. But obviously, if you don't want to go back to them immediately, then I'd say probably next up would be Gallows and Anderson. If you want to have them win the titles instead, you could go with the Acclaimed. True. The Acclaimed is probably the next highest up on the heel side of things. Now they're back together and back in the company.
Something to pay attention to. A grim shot in the chat, super chat. He jumped from the top. Jumped. Yeah.
You didn't just fall.
That's right. Jumped from the top of the cage. Nope, not doing it. Not doing any of these things. I had said when we were watching it, but I was watching this with a bunch of people that haven't really been watching anything for a while. Like, kind of in and out of WWE, never really paid super duper much attention to AEW, but still, kind of, they knew some of these things, but then some other people didn't know a damn thing, so it was a wide range of stuff. But easily this was the match that everybody was just going nuts over. And the thumbtack shoe was a big highlight of just like, oh, fuck, they're really going to like start kicking each other with the shoe with the thumbtacks on it and everything. If you're going to show anybody that's like an outsider any match on this card, I think it would be this one.
Oh, yeah, it was absolutely great. But I'd also say that the cage did its job realistically, because even though Cutler was able to throw that shoe into the ring, it kept the Elite out and allowed the Lucha Bros to win. So,
who throws a shoe? Honestly. Check out the Austin Powers fan tracks. We recorded them the other day. They're up on fanboysanonymous.com. They're on the preview kind of thing right now. Like they'll premiere over the course of the next couple weeks. But Michael Patrick in the chat says, my wife is an extremely casual fan and she was glued to this match. Yep, that's the case. So that switched over to the 21-woman casino battle royale. The clubs started it off. Shida, Sky Blue, who was replacing Julia Hart.
No, she wasn't.
Well, Julia Hart was taken out of the match and Sky Blue was put in there.
It was a case like, I guess that was the argument, really.
Yeah.
I kind of felt like it was a case of, because when I heard that Sky Blue was in the match, it was before Dark was recorded. Because Dark had been, what I meant to say is Dark had been recorded beforehand.
Didn't air, yeah.
Yeah, it didn't air at that point, and then they revealed it on that bit. So they basically, I knew that at that point there were 21 names, right, including Julia Hart.
And then they did a whole thing where it's like Hart got attacked and that kind of deal. So Sky Blue replaces her, which is a shame for Julia Hart, but yeah, if she's a Chicago girl, I can understand why they put her in there.
Yeah, and Julia Hart was not going to win, and it means that she can immediately bounce into a feud where she can go against, will probably end up losing to either Nyla Rose or Jade Cargill.
So we had those two. We had Emi Sakura, we had the Bunny, and we had Abadon. Some eliminations happen here and there. We're not going to go each elimination or anything. Diamonds were Anna Jay, Kiera Hogan, KiLynn King, Diamante, and Nyla Rose. Eventually, we get to Hearts, which were Thunder Rosa, Penelope Ford, Riho, Jamie Hayter, and Big Swole. And the Spades round things out with Taikon Chi, Red Velvet, Layla Hirsch, Jade Cargill, and Rebel. Eventually, that leads us to the final participant, the Joker card, which in the past has pretty much always been some kind of a surprise. And this time around, it's a surprise and it's not. It is something where we all knew this was going to be what was going to happen. We've known for a while, but if you don't pay attention to dirt sheets, you don't pay attention to who gets released from companies and all the other things that people in our headspace do, then it was just purely a shock, I'm sure. But for everybody else, we were like, okay, Ruby Riot's going to pop up and she's going to be named Ruby Soho. And look at that. Joker's Ruby Soho, as expected. But that doesn't take away from it. And this is a match that I'm pretty much always going to have the same reaction to. I like Battle Royals, and I like Royal Rumble matches, and I like anything that's like this. So even when they're a little bit messy, I still tend to enjoy them quite a bit. Because it's just a lot of people. It's fun to watch people get eliminated. You get some good spots with somebody gets tossed out and everybody boos, and then that person gets tossed out and everybody cheers. It's basic. And Peyton had brought up the first 2/3 of the match had major Divas Battle Royal vibes. There were definitely some spots where it was just like, wow, that's really bad that you're like climbing over the top rope and you're gonna fall like that. It's par for the course. But I enjoyed this.
Yeah, I thought it was fun, even though it was, I think, pretty sloppy for the most part. And there were cases where, I mean, something that I've enjoyed about previous Casino Battle Royals is it always felt like all people would get something to do, or at least showcase a little bit, where it kind of felt like about like at least half a dozen or so the women in this match just came into the ring and then were eliminated like seconds later.
Yeah, Sky Blue was out pretty quick. Kiera Hogan did like nothing.
Yeah, Kiera Hogan did nothing. KiLynn King did nothing.
Yep.
Blue did nothing beyond just like posing to the crowd and then getting easily eliminated by Abadon, who then was also immediately eliminated. Swole didn't really do too much. She did get eliminated. She eliminated Diamante, but then was immediately eliminated herself. Riho was weird because I didn't even think that she got eliminated.
She got eliminated by...
I know she got eliminated by...
Yeah. Wait,
she got eliminated by Hayter, but the crowd talks about the fact that like she went under the ring and then they announced that she was eliminated.
Yeah, I didn't even write down that she had gotten eliminated.
Yeah,
so that must have happened when it was like some kind of weird situation.
Because I saw Hayter looking at the referee and saying, no, she's not eliminated, but then she never got back in the ring.
Huh.
So I was super confused about that, because obviously they don't do the old Diva style in WWE Battle Royal where you can get eliminated for any means and stuff like that, like for any part of the ring. But yeah, so it was odd that she got eliminated and was basically non-existent there as well. Red Velvet is not liked by the crowd now. Like basically from whatever was happening with the Britt Baker thing, she gets booed significantly now. Yeah,
it was a mistake. I don't think that they should have done that. They set Red Velvet up as the one who's going to get booed against Britt Baker in Pittsburgh. And I don't know. I mean, she had just had a whole thing with Nyla Rose. You could have gone with another heel and it would have made perfect sense. Kind of sacrificed Red Velvet there, and she's got to, I guess, probably turn heel down the line now.
Yeah, I'd say so. That's probably the next course of action. I think the match really started to go well when it was down to like a few people left. When Ruby got into the ring, Cargill immediately eliminated like Hayter Velvet. She got eliminated by Nyla Rose. But the more interesting thing was like it started like this two-side stories thing where it was Thunder Rosa and Ruby Soho taking down Nyla Rose, trying to take down the like giant redwood. And then basically from the moment that Ty Conchi got into the match, she was just attacking Penelope Ford and the bunny. Because obviously that was like building up from the Anna Jay thing from earlier. And so pretty much for the entire, once Anna Jay and the bunny were both eliminated, it was pretty much her just attacking Penelope Ford for the rest of the match.
Yeah.
And they did a nice little sequence, but then Ty Conchi eliminates her, and then she's immediately eliminated.
By Rose.
And then when it's down... Oh yeah, by Rose, yeah. And then when it was down to the final three, like it was obvious that Ruby was going to win.
Right, yeah. That was the whole, like, all right, the two of them are going to end up getting down to, Soho and Rosa. And it plays out that way. And
and that was the best part of the entire match, was those two going after each other.
It was awkward with the apron stuff, though, and here's where I can talk about the people that were around here that hadn't really been watching wrestling or hadn't been, super deep into it or whatever. A lot of people were like, wow, this is very dramatic and very, like, silly, because it's like the slow, like, whoa, I'm gonna fall kind of thing. And it's admittedly, it's pretty silly sometimes. Everybody was just sort of like, why don't you just kick her? Like, why don't you just do this? Why don't you do that? It's a scenario that we've seen play out a million times, so it's not something I'm going to nitpick, but I can see how somebody who isn't as deep into pro wrestling would be just like, okay, this is ridiculous. Why doesn't one of them just like kick the other one and knock her the fuck out, you know?
I guess so. There needs to be some sort of level of suspension of disbelief, though.
Yeah.
Because, like, do people, like, shout about all this stuff? Like, why don't you do this stuff when, like, there's movie fights and stuff like that?
I'm sure that would be the case. Dad in the chat had also said, Jade Cargill with a George Washington wig. Am I right, gang? Some of the people that we're watching with, they were like, okay, what's up with Storm? Is Storm doing this? Like, they just didn't know her name, so they're calling her Storm. But Ruby Soho wins this, and she's going to be the next challenger for Dr. Britt Baker. I am fully expecting Baker will retain.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's not going to be like, that doesn't kill Ruby Riott or Ruby Soho. It doesn't mean she's buried. I don't want to hear any of that kind of nonsense. Plenty of people can lose a match once in a while, you know?
Just getting the title match first, like, immediately into the company.
Right.
Like,
but you know that people do that. You know, people are like, you know, this person lost a match and they're buried forever.
But then there's also that type of people that say, oh, she just got signed for WWE and she's getting a title match. Is this TNA or whatever again? It's like,
yeah.
It's like, they don't actually. This is like maybe one. I don't know if this is the first or like the first time they've actually ever done this in the Battle Royal of giving the person the title shot, because they didn't do it with Christian.
Yeah, Christian lost it to Jungle Boy.
Yeah, and didn't do it with Matt Sydal.
He was the surprise one that year? Or that time?
He was a Joker, I believe.
No, I didn't think that he was. I thought that he came out before the Joker spot, right?
No, he came out as a Joker because he got the special entrance and then he did the slip.
He botched. It was awful.
Yeah, and then I think the one before that might have been like, I think the last time they did it where they brought someone in for the first time and then they had them immediately win something was Brian Cage.
Cage was the casino ladder match, right?
Yeah. Was he the casino ladder match? Yeah, he was. Yeah. And the difference with that is the fact that he's never worked for WWE. So.
Yeah, I mean, that's a completely different story when it comes to that.
Yeah.
The very first, I'm looking up right now, Double or Nothing 2019, the Joker was Adam Page, and he won.
Yeah.
But he was already part of the company, so that's not that kind of deal.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm totally fine with them doing that thing with it, especially with someone like Ruby Soho, who is a well-known name for people that watch WWE, but isn't super well-known, like, from a wider perspective. It's not like she's like if it was like Becky Lynch or Bayley had signed for AEW, she was like a mid-tier women's wrestler for WWE. So if you want to elevate her, you need to give her a big win straight off the bat.
And then, Matt Sydal, you were right. He was the Joker for that one. That was Lance Archer one. Leo Rush was the Joker. And then, as Ted says, Leo Rush shows up, retires the next day, so he doesn't really count in that kind of fashion. And Mercedes Martinez was a Joker for the All Out in 2019. She didn't win that match. That was Nyla Rose. So I think that this was the right call. She is somebody who is a big enough name that she can fight Baker, and plenty people are going to go into that thinking that she's going to beat Baker. So when Baker wins, then it's going to be like, man, the heel won. Grr. That kind of deal. Darby says, not going to lie, I love Britt Baker's theme song. It's catchy, that's for sure. Switching over to Chris Jericho versus MJF, the final fight. How good was it that you see a countdown and then it switches over to Jericho's last match and it's MJF?
He is. He just takes every single heel tactic and turns out to 11.
He's so good. A little bit of an awkward entrance for Jericho, though.
Yeah, the guitarist wasn't a great pick.
The crowd didn't even know that they really should start singing along until about halfway through.
Yeah, and then the tune of the guitar started to really kind of interrupt their singing.
Yeah, that's not the best
It might
one.
have just been better. I thought, he might as well just come out a cappella again.
Yeah, why not, right? Because that worked. That worked swimmingly. But this was a fun match. This is one of my favorite matches of the night. MJF just having a fucking ball with so many things. Like, yeah, he's like thrusting in the match here and there to get some heat and ripping up some signs. And a couple notes that I wrote down here and there, like the power bomb on the apron. Ooh, ouch.
Yeah. Well, that was the turning point of the entire match.
And that was the thing that really set up the finish for the whole thing. So proper storytelling.
And that was following the heat seeker pile driver to Jericho on the apron, and MJF like ordering the count because he'll take a count out win over Jericho.
Were you thinking at any point that any of these count outs throughout the night were going to be an actual count out? Because I kept joking. I was just kind of like, that'd be funny if this just actually ended up happening. But Aubrey,
they don't do that very often.
Aubrey seemed like she was getting worried that Jericho wasn't going to be able to make it in time. The way that she said 8 really seemed like she was like, 8? Like, come on, Chris. Like, can you fucking hear me? That kind of deal. Yeah. Ted says, MJF yelling at the fat guy in the crowd during his entrance. That guy didn't want any of MJF. And Payton says Jericho saw Rick Boogs and wanted his own fancy rock entrance. The Rick Boogs thing, it's getting over. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's just fun to say Boogs, at the very least. Patrick bringing up the Flair gear. Yeah. Very Ric Flair inspired from MJF tonight. And
it was more like royal robes, wasn't it?
The robe was great too. Loved the robe.
Oh yeah, because he was doing the he obviously did the Fargo strut as well at some point.
So we get Wardlow coming out. Jake Hager intercepts him. MJF is able to hit Jericho in the head with Floyd bat. And since Aubrey's distracted, and she doesn't also notice that Jericho's got his leg up on the ropes, and his foot's there pretty much right on time, but the pinfall gets counted for MJF, and that is a great moment of people just being like, oh, wait, fuck, oh my god, what happened? That kind of thing. I love when they can pull something off like this.
Yeah, it was a nice little touch that added the drama to the match as well, because I assume a lot of people went into this thinking that there's no way Jericho's going to lose and be out of it now. And so when they did that, people just the crowd just got super deflated. It's like, oh my god, especially because the fact that they'd seen him put his foot on the ropes, so they knew that he'd screwed out of it. So it was almost that case of like, I'm part of you would be thinking, oh my god, they must do a restart, but they held it for long enough to the point where you just felt, oh my god, they're actually going to end it, and maybe he gets a rematch down the line or something like that. But people were just super upset, and then the other referee comes down, tells Aubrey that he had his foot on the ropes at the right time, and so they restart the match, and everyone's excited again. So yeah, it was a really good moment.
Yeah, I loved that. I love that when you get the referee to come out, people start having that just like, oh, thank God kind of moment. Because you want that rush, you know? You're watching pro wrestling for the action in the ring. You're watching it for the storytelling. And that switch from, oh, crap, oh, no, the guy I didn't want to retire is going to have to retire, and it was a screw job, and boom, whatever. And then the surprise of, you know, the referee comes and saves the day kind of deal. That's what you're watching for. And I liked that they followed that up, too, with a roll-up that didn't end up being the end of the match. Because that happens way too often in pro wrestling. But you give it a couple more minutes, and eventually Jericho locks in the walls. Jericho. It looked like he was going to go for the knee kind of lion tamer, and then couldn't do it. I don't know why. I guess maybe he was still a little too beaten up for it or something.
Yeah, I think he might have just lost his footing while attempting to go for it, and so decided just to sit back further instead.
Yeah. And MJF taps out. Jericho's career is still sticking around for a little while longer.
Yep. Inner Circle come in and start surround him afterwards. Yeah, I thought this was a solid match. I wouldn't say it was like super great, but it was what it needed to be. And yeah, I don't think MJF is hurt at all by losing here. They built it up well by having him take that back injury, and so of course he would end up losing to the Walls of Jericho. And yeah, so I feel Jericho sticks around for longer, and that's probably the right decision. There's plenty of things that he can still be doing right now. MJF can move on to another program after this, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see where both of them go from this point.
Bennett says, "Thank fuck Jericho won't be stuck doing commentary." Best moment of the night.
Oh, he'll still be doing the commentary.
He probably still will be. He would just be like, "Oh yeah, that's my thing," you know. Next match after that was CM Punk versus Darby Allin. And here's where people are going to go, "Oh, come on, Tony, what the hell?" To be perfectly honest, I thought that this was underwhelming. And it's not the worst match of the night. It's not the worst match of the year or anything like that. So I don't want to hear people bitching that it needs to be one extreme or the other. I just thought that this was a very slow start. And if the last couple minutes, like last 3 minutes of this match would have been longer, then I would have been enjoying this the way that a lot of other people are. But I also think that a lot of people are convincing themselves that this was better than what it was. I think if you take exactly the same match and you put two other people in there, or even just one other person, if it's somebody else other than CM Punk, I think that people would be like, "Oh, this was nothing. This is whatever." I didn't enjoy the beginning of this match. I thought that this was ridiculous that people were chanting, "You've still got it." And it was like 3 moves have happened and they weren't even super great. It doesn't change the fact that it's fantastic that CM Punk is back. Doesn't change the fact that I'm still excited to see CM Punk against a lot of other people. But you give me a bunch of rest holds, I'm going to be thinking, when is this going to get good? And it just took too long. Got better, but it took too long.
Yeah, it's not the best match of the night, but I thought it was really good still. I think for someone who hasn't done this for 7 years, I think this is better than what I could have actually expected. I don't think it was going to be. I never thought that it was going to be like super, super awesome, because Punk at the end of the day was never. I know his line is the best in the world, but I've never considered him to be like someone who consistently delivered match of the year candidates. The only one they really delivered on is like the
Cena one?
the Cena one, yeah. But he obviously got a great response. The crowd was super behind him. Darby was still getting cheered as well, so that was good to see as well. But then there was some cool. No, I wasn't particularly, because people like Darby. It's not John Cena. People hate John Cena regardless of it. People would boo John Cena regardless of it being involved in that. I think Darby's someone that the crowd actually like is enamored with. So
I just figured Punk being back, they're in Chicago, like how many people are really going to be cheering for Darby Allin? But there was a solid "Let's Go Darby" CM Punk kind of duel.
Yeah, he's super popular. He's one of the most popular acts in the entire company. So I don't feel like that was super surprising that people were cheering for him. They did some cool spots where you had the hammer throw Irish whip sending through the middle rope into the ring post.
Yeah, that was my favorite part.
He was wrestling like pretty simple. Like he was doing like more of a heel roll, putting on rest holds, like stomping him around type thing, hitting a few moves every now and again, like took the backbreaker and just regular backdrops and stuff like that. But I felt like that's part of the story. I felt was the idea that Punk is rusty. He's going back to basics because he needs to start from the ground up, essentially. And so that's why he's a bit more slower and a bit more deliberate in what he was doing. And then Allin takes over a flurry of offense. And so once he starts to pick up the pace of the match, tries to wrestle at his style, because that means that he's not letting Punk dictate it. Punk has to then step up and move a bit quicker as well. And that's when he starts doing things like the like flipping heel kick and stuff like that, and the running knee, and all this other stuff. And there's cool moments like hitting the swanton dive to Punk on the floor, hitting the GTS, but like Darby falling out of the ring, blocking a poison Rana attempt, him sitting up to avoid the coffin drop was a really cool spot.
Like that. Yeah, that was good. That he was just sort of like, why wouldn't I just sit up? Like, yeah.
And I think that, again, they positioned this match on the card really well as well, because they didn't make it the main event, it put that little shred of doubt in I imagine a lot of people's minds that Darby Allin might actually win this match. And it's like, okay, Punk realizes that he's off a step right now, Darby gets a big win over a legend, and Punk has to like build himself up from here. But they decided, no, Punk's going to win because it is in Chicago and they want to set him up strong. And so after a couple of near falls, he reverses the Poison Rana attempt, hits the GTS for a second time, gets the victory, shakes hands with both of them at the end of it. So he's still babyface. Even though they did that little cool spot at the end as well, where Punk walks up the ramp and then he teases going into the heel one because he doesn't really know. He's like saying, what's the difference between two of them? And then the crowd says, no, go in that one. And I feel that's another cool moment so people know which side is the babyface tunnel and which side is the heel tunnel.
Right, yeah.
Like people just love this company and they're just super invested in everything about it.
Fun moments like that are really like that little moment doesn't make or break a card or make a show infinitely better, but it goes to show just the morale. And when you've got like AEW, people can have fun with those things, and it's not going to be something that's like that takes you out of it. It's the heel one because they're all baby faces and heels and it's villains and it's scripted and whatever. But then it's like, not to rag on WWE, but how often do we get something fun like that in WWE?
It's not really a word that appears in their vocabulary that much. It's all very, again, it's not saying it's strictly bad, but it's all very sanitized.
Homogenous. And just, if there is something that's slightly different, a lot of the times it kind of falls flat. Like that whole thing with Vince McMahon popping up and talking about Triple H and Shawn Michaels and whatever. That was like, oh, wow, something different's happening. And nobody brings it up. It seems embarrassing sometimes when some of those things happen more than anything else. But I like that. And I liked other moments like, throughout there, here and there. I just thought that this match was the type of thing where I'm like, I don't want to hear people talking about this being match of the year. It's not.
No, I think the people that are saying the match of the year is like would be going way, way, way overboard. But I don't think people should be begrudged for saying that this was a good match. I'd put it on, at least from my perspective, I'd put it on a parallel of like the Moxley Kojima match or the Kingston Miro match, or actually to be fair, I'd almost put it on the same level as like the Jericho and MJF one as well. The MJF one I think is slightly better, but I don't think it's demonstrably different.
I'd put it towards the lower end. Wasn't my thing. It was better though, at least overall, the segment, than Paul White versus QT Marshall, which I have nothing to say about.
Yeah, I got slightly. I think I was saying in our little like private chat with me, you and Rob, I was saying that I'm actually almost annoyed that this match is now taking place because this show's been pretty much, there's not been a bad match really on this entire show, and not that this was bad because you can't really get super bad in like 3 minutes of action, but yeah, it just was completely pointless to be there. And honestly, it didn't, even though I said like it can't be that bad because it's 3 minutes, it wasn't good. Like,
there wasn't anything to it. It was it was basically a beatdown segment almost. And
yeah, well, the point of it where I got like to where I was thinking, oh, I'm a little bit worried about if they actually do anything further with Paul White, was the moment where he tried to kick out of the cover by QT Marshall, and then it's meant to be the spot where he powers out and sends QT out the ring. He barely moved his arms, and QT went flying. It just went, oh, okay, he's that kind of legend. So he's like, obviously he's a big name, and so they want to use him and get some value out of it. But he's not going to be someone who like Christian, who comes back after a long absence and is like working harder than ever. It feels like he's going to be a guy who is limited in what he can do, and that's why he has these 3 minute segments. And I think the idea that now people might have suggested that, oh, this is all to build up Nick Comorodo, and that Nick Comorodo got his ass kicked as well in this match. Basically, the entire factory did. So now I'm just assuming that White is going to have a couple of matches either on Dark or Dynamite in the next couple of weeks where he beats Aaron Solo and then beats Nick Comorodo and then moves on to whatever's next.
Yeah, I wasn't buying into the this is all setting up Nick kind of thing. Sorry, Nick.
No.
But it just didn't seem like that was the case for me, because Nick hasn't been positioned as the same as like Wardlow. Like they're using him, and yeah, I mean, credit to Nick. Like, it was funny because it's like, again, a lot of people watching it over in the basement, and people are just kind of like, I'm here like in some ways to see Nick because he's, you know, like part of the circle kind of thing, you know, like the amount of times that he's been at the same parties, et cetera, et cetera. But somebody, I forget who it was, sorry, was asking, they were like, oh shit, like Nick is like doing something and doing like these big things, and he looks like this big scary caveman. How many matches has he won? And I was like, you know what? I don't remember Nick winning any matches on Dynamite at the very least, let alone, obviously, like he hasn't been a part of any pay-per-view things, but they're not treating him like he is the same kind of thing as like Brian Cage, Lance Archer, etc. He's looking better, but he's still getting beaten down the same way like Solo is in this kind of an environment.
Yeah. I don't feel like they're positioning him to be anything super special right now. Again, it might be somebody they build up in the long-term future, but that would be something that I think would start unraveling itself in 2-3 years' time. I think for the time being, he's just going to be a guy who's an understudy to QT Marshall. The more likely thing that's probably going to happen is that he's going to get sick of being beaten down by people like Paul White and having to fight QT's battles for him and stuff like that, and be involved with the guy who just constantly loses. And so his first real feud will probably be against QT Marshall.
I can definitely see that being the case, where he just
and he should win that
flips out and attacks him and that kind of deal. Yeah.
Yeah, and he should win that one, because at the end of the day, QT really doesn't need to be getting anything at this point.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, nothing really happened here. Michael Patrick in the chat says, best moment of the night for me was when I remembered that I paused it during the cage match, so I got to skip ahead past the entire Paul White QT match.
That was a good decision.
And then we went to our main event, the AEW World Championship match, Kenny Omega against Christian Cage. Solid match. Not too much for me to talk about specifics, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was a strong match. I don't feel like it had the same. It didn't have quite the same energy as their match at Rampage, which I was a little bit disappointed about because I felt like they would step it up a little bit more. But they did do some cool stuff in this. Like the table spot was nice. Just having like a nice little spear through that, as well as doing the foot stomp through the table that was set up on Christian. Some nice little spears in the ring as well, doing a spear to the back before a spear to the ribs. Having Gallows and Anderson get involved, but have that backfire, get the near fall and the unprettier, and then hitting the Whelming Angel from the
ropes, yeah.
So doing the avalanche one instead, and that's like I've seen him do that before, so it's not like it's out of the question. But see Christian take that move was a little bit that's a little bit crazy. But yeah, it was a really good match. Really solid between the two of them. The right person won, as everyone expected them to. But at the end of the day, regardless of how good that match was, unless it was going to be like a match of the year contender, nobody would have been talking about that after what happened in the post match.
Yeah, that's not the big takeaway here. It's not something that it devalues. Like what happens afterward, it doesn't devalue what happened beforehand. But even somebody who's not like expecting some kind of big surprise, the way that this was set up was very much like, all right, we got that out of the way, and now we're gonna get to the big thing, kind of. Which ends up being, some trash talking after the match. The Elite beats down Christian. Jurassic Express tries to help out, but they can't compete with the numbers game. And Omega says that the only people who could ever beat him for the title are either not in the company, they're already retired, or they're dead, which is great. And that brings out Adam Cole. And a lot of people are probably thinking, wait, what? I thought that Bryan Danielson was coming out. What the hell? Blah, blah, blah. This is pretty cool. That kind of deal. I'm immediately thinking, and I'm sure a lot of other people are thinking as well, all right, he's going to hug it out. Like, this is going to be one of those kind of deals. It's swerve. And I was very happy to see that was the case. where he super kicks Jungle Boy, hugs it out with the Elite. It's just kind of like, all right, well, haha, fuckers. Like, you expected some kind of thing. We got you, that kind of deal. And then, of course, the music hits. And we get a weird switch over with the music where I was not expecting, but nevertheless, it's Bryan Danielson, who looks super happy, of course. And he helps the babyfaces fight it all out.
Yeah, it was a cool moment at the end of it where you get the 4-on-4 stare off between the Young Bucks, Kenny Omega and Adam Cole against Jurassic Express, Christian and Bryan Danielson. Now we have to officially say Bryan Danielson all the time. And then just beating each other up. Bryan just going straight for Nick Jackson, and then just hitting him repeatedly, kicks in the corner and hitting the running knee. And yeah, it was an awesome moment. I know there is a school of thought, and they probably may have made smarter business sense to stretch out some of these appearances, but to get a moment like that, it's a very rare opportunity where you can have two major stars in the world of wrestling appear in one time and kick off essentially a new gang war type situation where we've got a new person part of the Elite, and it makes perfect sense because he's got history there as well, and then you've got this new guy that's coming in as well, and he's going to be standing up to those ones and helping out the good guys. Yeah, it's a rare moment you can have that happen. So if you can do it, then why not? So I was super pleased with how all this went down.
I thought this was perfect. Because if it would have just been Daniel Bryan, people would have been... I'm going to be used to calling him Daniel Bryan, by the way, for everybody who's like, he's Bryan Danielson now, relax. Just like I'm going to call him Big Show. Yeah, it's just one of those things. But if that would have been the, Kenny Omega says nobody can beat him, and then Bryan Danielson comes out, that still would have been fantastic. It's not going to take anything away from that. But switching over with the Adam Cole thing first, not only do you get double the amount of the surprise, but you got a new heel in the mix. And Cole is going to be so much better off in AEW than what would have happened if he would have stuck in WWE. As much as I do still always kind of want everything to be under the same roof, WWE has not been keeping good morale lately, and they have a bad track record when it comes to taking somebody from NXT and not utilizing them the right way on the main roster. So if you are told, be in the opposite company from your girlfriend and a lot of your friends, even though he still has a lot of friends in WWE too, but and will probably not use you for more than an Intercontinental Championship, and maybe not even that, because it didn't happen for Tyler Breeze. What's the likelihood that you really want to sign there and sign over your Twitch account and do this and do that, than to just go with the momentum, go in the other company, and see where that takes you?
Yeah, I guess it's odd for someone on the outside looking in, but it's from someone from that perspective, it seemed like a no-brainer to me that he would sign with AEW. But they did the order great as well with that, because he's the one who's the more surprising of the two. Because even though we didn't know that Bryan Danielson was debuting tonight, even though we'd had inklings about that, we knew that he was eventually going to be signing with the company because it had been rumored for a long time. Whereas Adam Cole only recently came onto the scene as a free agent, and so he's just immediately there a week after becoming a free agent. And yeah, it's super, super cool to have him rejoining the Elite. It means that he doesn't need to be pushed to the world title scene straight away, because obviously the world champion is his buddy. But it means that there's someone down the road who, let's say we got a certain Hangman Page still lurking in the background who might take the title off him. We have a ready-made challenger to maybe be the person that brings the belt back to the Elite, just in a different way.
And of course, Cole at any point could win the TNT championship. He could just have some great matches with a lot of people. there's a lot to look forward to when it comes to Cole and AEW.
That this really strengthens the claim for a trios title as well, because even though the realistic one would be the Elite of being with Omega and Jackson, the Jacksons, I think that it actually makes more sense because of Kenny's stature and being so closely synonymous with the world title, that having a good trios team of the Young Bucks and Adam Cole would make sense as well.
And then, of course, obviously with Daniel Bryan in the mix, that he is going to have a whole litany of people that, God, I mean, this is, like we were saying at the beginning of this is a turning point in a lot of ways, because AEW, they're not perfect by any means. They've got more than their fair share of some flops here and there. I mean, let's not forget the Nightmare Collective, for instance. But more often than not, something's at least baseline good. And the momentum in the past couple of months has just been these big leaps, not just like a steady increase, but they're going like, all right, this week we had this little increase and this little increase, and next week we're going to have a giant jump up. And then a little increase, giant jump up. It's going to be one of those pay-per-views where it seems like, okay, you've got almost everybody that WWE keeps seemingly like, you know, well, they're not good enough for us, so we just give them to somebody else. And then AEW is going to take them. They're going to do something really great with them. Whether it's a Ruby Soho doing better than she ever did in WWE, or if it's the peak of what we could get with Bryan Danielson, or Adam Cole doesn't go to waste, or whatever. Despite the fact that there's a Paul White situation where that didn't work out as being like, oh, okay, he's back to the way that he was back in, 20 years ago. Christian's doing some great stuff. And on top of that, you're not in a situation like with TNA. It's not just the old WWE guys that are actually doing something. There are indie people that have been brought in. There are AEW like stalwarts. There are new people coming in all the time. There's people that I haven't even heard of that they come in and pretty quickly they're like, oh, well, I actually really like this guy. I didn't have any idea who Wheeler Yuta was. And I'm like, yeah, I like him. Cool. This company is doing everything right for the most part.
Yeah, they're hardly putting a foot wrong, and anything they do, which is quote unquote on the wrong side of things, is pretty minor in the grand scheme of everything. So, I feel like at the moment they're on a really positive train of momentum, and long may it continue, because I'm enjoying the hell out of their journey so far. It's definitely offsetting the fact that how shoddy and repetitive and just overall disheartening the entire WWE landscape is. So to have an alternative out there that I actually enjoy, even though, as you say, it does have its small flaws, but I don't feel like it's anything. It's nothing ultimately dramatic that's going to affect my enjoyment of the product as a whole. So as long as that stays in place, then that's great. And if it just gets to a point where, okay, things start to fall off for a while for AEW, then the hope is that WWE start to pick up, and then you can balance out between the two of them.
Yeah, one learns from the other one.
Yeah, that's always the hope, that eventually both sides get so good that you actually just want to watch both of them and enjoy watching both of them. But unfortunately, only one side feels like a chore at the moment, and it's certainly not AEW with the way that they've been going at the moment. So yeah, I think that this was a really, really good show from a wrestling perspective, but in terms of just everything that's surrounding it and the importance of the ramifications of what could happen from this show, I feel like it's a landmark show for AEW. It might be the most one of, if not the most pivotal pay-per-views of their entire history.
And Michael Patrick sums it up with what's been a catchphrase for a while now: "Good things are good." As simple as it is. William also says, I was almost expecting Bray Wyatt to come out just to put the cherry on top. What if that would have been the case? What if it would have been like, nobody that could beat me because everybody's either not in the company or they're retired or they're dead. Oh, Adam Cole pops up. Oh, Daniel Bryan pops up. Oh my God, Bray Wyatt pops up. Braun Strowman pops up. And it's like, it's just 20 people come out one by one. I think you need to get people fainting in the crowd. I think that this was perfect, though. Like, you don't need to do any more than this. This was, you got two major things at the end there happening. You got the promise of the CM Punk return, which, even though that didn't go down the way that I was hoping that it would, he's going to have better matches in the future. And you got Ruby Soho in the women's division. You got some other good stuff in the mix, too. Like, the Jericho match was good and everything, too. You got new tag team champions and a great match there. Can't say that this is a downer pay-per-view by any means. This is obviously a thumbs up.
Yep. Multiple thumbs up, I think.
Ted says AEW is taking the young guys who WWE should be building around and adding them to the talent they already have, plus rejuvenating retired guys. Yep, they are giving a little bit of a shot of adrenaline to the people that need it for the last run of their careers, using them as some established names to get some more attention to the company while building up the younger guys. It's almost like it makes perfect sense, right?
It is pretty much, it just all really boils down to, still your phrase, it's a good booking. They're a company that books well. And so if you book well, you can have this mixture of veteran talent and ex-WWE guys and young people that have just come through the independent circuit and can build stars out of it, or build people that you have an emotional investment towards. And so that's the difference.
Well, that is it for All Out. We've got some major things heading towards the future that will really carry over interest into the next episode of Dynamite, and I guess technically the Dark episodes go before that, which, how do they even do that? Did they air all the things that they had taped for Dark? I don't know. I know that they had recorded some stuff for Elevation ahead of time. I don't know about Dark, but the Dynamite episode, you're going to get some stuff going forward, like that Malachi Black against Dustin Rhodes match. Once we get into Rampage, we're going to get the match that was supposed to be on the card here between Andrade and Pac. And I don't know what else we're in store for, but I'm excited to see it. To be able to talk about all that when it comes down to the hot tags for next week, and we're recapping all the fallout from All Out. Fallout from All Out. I like that. The Fallout. There you go. And anything else you guys want to talk about, drop a comment below. Tell us your thoughts, and we will factor that in as well. I don't know what our main event is going to be for this week. Didn't really settle on anything, but if you have any suggestions to what you'd like to see, we're here. Then drop a comment with that thought as well. Any last thoughts on all this, Callum?
Nope, just great show. Don't really need to add too much on top of it. Just looking forward to the coming days and weeks and the journey to Full Gear in November.
Now, that is a pay-per-view that they established is going to be November 13th. We will not have a post-show when it comes to that, because I'm going to be getting married. So it's a different scenario there. And thank you again to Huerta from the beginning of this chat with the donation to the super chat when it comes to that. But we won't be able to do the same kind of setup for that. But we will eventually talk about Full Gear in some fashion down the line, the week afterward or whatever it might be. You'll get our opinions here and there. Yeah. The All Out stuff's out of the way, and make sure that you subscribe if you haven't done that already. Ring that little notification so where you know when we go live for whatever it is that we do go live for, which I'm pretty sure the next edition is going to be the mailbag for Q4. And then if you stay tuned to the happenings, I should say, over on smarkoutmoment.com, and you follow the Facebook and Twitter accounts at smarkoutmoment, you do the same things over to fanboysanonymous.com, and you check out everything that's happening there, like the Review to a Kill series, but the James Bond franchise, which coming up soon, we're going to get the latest entry in the Bond series, which is crazy that it's finally happening. It took like 6 years, but it's, No Time to Die is coming out in a couple weeks. So check that out. Check out the Austin Powers stuff we were talking about. If you want some crossover content between Fanboys and Smark Out Moment, you should check out the fan tracks for Jungle Cruise, starring The Rock, and the fan tracks for Vacation Friends, starring John Cena. One of them a lot more entertaining than the other one. And it was kind of surprising how that ended up working out. But That stuff is all good. You can follow me at Tony Mango. You can follow everything else under A Mango Tree by searching under A Mango Tree. That's the whole point. And check out what I've got on other kind of freelance stuff. You'll find it if you start clicking around. Follow Callum as well.
Yep, you can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. Also, check out all the stuff on smark@moment.com. Power Rankings is my week-to-week contribution, but make sure you're checking out everything else as well. If you're interested in the retro side of wrestling content, then you can check out either 2001 A Wrestling Odyssey or the Paul Heyman SmackDown podcast over in the either YouTube archives. There are playlists set up for that, or just checking out the podcast feeds. You'll be able to find him digging around in there somewhere. So, yeah, that's it from me.
Alrighty, everybody, that's going to do us in for this edition. Thank you for listening. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the regular chats. Thank you for the likes and the follows and everything else that's happening there. We will see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment, and we're being counted out.